You look across the room, you pull out your weapon, you stab the goblin that is just right around the corner, and you rip its throat out. You take its body and you drink its blood.
I don't want to do any of those things. None of those things.
But it's like super dramatic and cool.
I get that, but my character doesn't have a sword on their person, so I don't know what it is that you expect me to...
You are a wizard, aren't you?
Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to GameGorgon. My name's Indigo.
And I'm a wizard.
And today we're talking about DM tips.
Yeah.
Tips for the DM lights, and...
It's just like, we're talking about DM tips. They're tips for DMs.
This is going to be our first foray in DM tips. We do want to hear from you guys and let us know whether or not we did a good job, if you thought these were helpful, and if you want us to go deeper into one or a different tip that we have for you guys. Any sort of suggestions, we want to hear from you.
The first thing we thought we'd talk about is allowing players to tell stories in your campaign. You as the GM obviously have a lot of control over the story in your campaign, but your players also need to have an amount of control, or at least you need to leave them the freedom to take an amount of control. They have worked really hard to create the characters that they're playing, and they have like ideas about how they want them to behave and what they want the character to grow into maybe. They definitely have ideas about how the character is gonna react to situations, because that is literally the point of the game. And so you should just let them do that.
All of this is going to be based off the fact that your players know how to play the game. Now, there are some people that are either new or just want to play the blank slate character. It's different from player to player on what they enjoy about the game.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's important to allow the player to make the decisions.
Right. Now, if you do have a player that isn't necessarily into the RP or the justification, explanation aspect of the game and just wants to roll dice and wants to fight, that's totally fine. But we do have a couple of pieces of advice just based around that situation. I think it's important to make sure that the player that's doing that is actually enjoying themselves and is not just like not understanding the freedom they have. Trepidation, I think, is really easy as a GM to like show people their way out of.
Even players that just want to roll dice and kill things.
Yeah.
Something that is a very kind of basic 101 GM is allowing your player to describe when they finally make that final killing blow on that beast, how they killed them. That kind of gets them a little bit more involved, gets them to be more interested, and also gives kind of the type of character that they're playing.
Especially if you're getting the sense that your player's just being shy. I think also, and this might be an unpopular opinion, if your player doesn't do stuff like that, potentially by you doing it for them in a more neutral, less like powerful choice way, you can maybe prompt them to start doing it themselves. If you show them how cool their character can look in their head, maybe they'll want to start doing it too.
Yeah.
The important part about that is if they start to take that control back from you, you just give it to them immediately.
Yeah.
So outside of that, we have three situations that we're gonna talk about. When players have no control over the situation that their character is in, when players have some control over the situation that the character is in, and when players have all the control over the situation that the character is in. Players have no control sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes you just have to tell the player something because it is fact. It is hot outside. It is objectively hot outside. Like, your body functions in a specific way. You don't have control over that. You're wearing armor. You're very hot. They can't do anything about that. What they can do something about is how they react to that information.
Yes.
It could be the difference between, okay, well, I'm gonna take off my armor, or I'm not going to take off my armor. And if you as a GM want to impose consequences for that sort of thing, you can, but never say, it's so hot you can't wear your armor. Even if it kills them, they can.
Absolutely.
It's gonna kill them. You can warn them and say, you're getting absolutely exhausted, you've never felt this tired before, you're covered in sweat, you feel worse than you've ever felt, ever. It's hurting you. Don't make the decision for them. That's, I think, the most important thing.
A player goes down a hallway and falls into a pit trap. They don't have a choice at that point. You fall, period.
Yeah.
You can react to falling. Oh crap, I'm falling. Can I grab the edge? Like what? But the action of them failing their passive perception, the fact that they tripped the trap.
Yeah, all of this hinges on success or non-mechanical things. either the player succeeded in something or the situation they're in doesn't require rolling at all. In a failure situation, the player's objectively not getting what they want. And you can have them like maybe add flavor to the situation and like run it by you. Oh, instead of falling prone on my back, can I fall prone on my front? So that like my holy symbol gets dirty, and I want that to be like a symbol of like how my god's disappointed in my clumsiness or something. I don't know, whatever your player comes up with.
Yeah.
And you can think about that as a GM in the situation and say, yeah, that makes sense, or no, it has to be this way, unfortunately. And they can't really say anything because they didn't roll well enough. I think the bottom line for a situation in which the player has no control is that like a player's non-mechanical reaction to something is never OP. It never affects the game. So just let them have it. Like you literally controlled the weather to make it hot. Let them have, you know, whether or not they take off their armor. Next, we're gonna talk about when a player has all the control.
Do you mean some of the control?
No, even though I said it that way in the beginning. In this situation, a player has some of the I didn't say a situation. There's a pirate standing in the doorway of a room, and he's going to kill everyone in the room unless the hero stands up and defeats him. So the player says, I would like to run up to the doorway with the pirate in it and raise my warhammer and smash him down on the head. Succeeds their attack and does damage. That hit just mechanically wouldn't kill the pirate in question. Like I'm not showing you stat blocks right now, but just pretend it's not gonna kill the pirate. Having the hammer hit the pirate on the head isn't really realistic, because if you put like all that weight and then like the weight of the hammer itself behind that blow and hit an unprotected head, that person's going to die. That's just how people's heads work. You can't describe it that way and still have the world feel real. You can change the way the player attacks. You don't raise your hammer fast enough and you only get it up to your hips before you reach the pirate, and so you swing sideways instead and hit him in the chest. But I think it takes away from the player, and it definitely doesn't have to, because you could just as easily say the pirate almost sees you coming in time and moves a little bit, and instead your hammer comes down and hits him in the shoulder, and you hear his bone snap, and you can make that a really satisfying hit for the player without instantly killing the character that isn't dead.
Sure.
And I also think it like plays into the chaos of combat to go back and forth with them a little bit.
Players should never really give a description of what they're doing full out, right? I want to move to them and I want to attack them should be their description. Depending on how they do their rolls would depend on where they hit them or how much damage they do, and maybe you can use it as a description there. Maybe that's a way that you can get your table to avoid this situation.
Yeah.
There are variant rules in most RPGs that allow you to attack specific parts of the body, which make the hit more difficult or easier depending on if you're just trying to hit the center of the chest, right? Okay, head's a little bit harder to hit, so you got to roll better.
I think that back and forth adds a lot to the tempo of combat.
Yeah, it just gets it can be a little much depending on how many players you have. While you as the GM are getting to play every single round, you're still looking at 3 other people that are doing nothing. At least on tables that I run, I like to give a description, a brief description at the back. Give me the base facts of what you want to do. You want to move, you want to attack, what kind of attack are you doing? Your roll determines how successful, how bad, and how it hits the person. It's random numbers. You're rolling these numbers and it can range. It hits their shoulder, but I went for their head. I want to go for their head. And having that back and forth, it hit them in the head, yes, but it didn't do as much damage because you did this, and then you're having to describe how the player reacted.
If it gets to that point, if it gets to the point where it's instead of like a back and forth that's like collaborative and you're discussing like this happened and then this happened and like layering on top of one another, if it gets to the point where it's combative, just like abort mission and just let it be unrealistic. That is like a great way to kill a table. If it's like collaborative, if it's something where you're adding to each other's statements, then it gets, I think, entertaining. It can potentially take a really long time. Other characters are waiting for their turn to look cool, and that it's your job to make all of them feel cool, not just the person whose turn it is right now.
Coming up with a description of how it succeeded or failed at the end. If I'm moving, I'm going and I'm hitting them in the head, which is this is a definite action, and then they roll a 1. You now have to describe a bunch of additional stuff. Too much. If you hold that to the end of the turn, you have a lot more time to deal with other things that may happen.
It's definitely a great way to save time. And lastly, we're going to talk about a situation where a player has some control. Think of a situation where a player is surrounded by opponents. They know they're going to lose. There's no way they can fight their way through it. You feel scared. You fear for your life, which is a reasonable thing for you to be able to tell a player.
Yes.
The thing you shouldn't tell the player is that their knees start to quiver, or like they take off their helmet and like bow down to the person in front of them. Don't ascribe a reaction to the character emotionally. Let them have the bravery, or let them have the stupidity to fight through the encounter. The reason GMs might sometimes, in like a very obviously one-sided situation, just be like, well, you do this because that's how it's gonna turn up anyways. One, it saves time. Two, it kind of like lets them make it more dramatic when they control all of the pieces, and they can like create these dramatic moments with everything instead of just the NPC side. But then the player feels left out. And also, I promise you, if you just give your players the freedom to do those things themselves, they're going to create, at the bare minimum, equally dramatic moments. At the best, more dramatic moments for you. You're going to be surprised regardless of which one they do, because they're going to do something you don't expect. And honestly, I think that is the fun part of GMing.
Sure.
Now I have to think.
Well, and here's the great thing about being a GM. If you need your players to do a very specific thing, you can change the world around them.
Exactly.
That causes that to happen. I feel like someone's going to watch this video and feel like we're calling him out on it. So I would like to say, yes, we're calling you out. We've been talking about doing GM tips for, I want to say, for at least a year now, but we haven't really had a good opportunity to do it. And then we were playing a game where our GM had done something that riled me up. You took actions away from my character, which I'm like, no, 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 you do not do that. And I understand now that I've seen like more aspects why he was doing the thing.
The campaign became infinitely more complicated.
Yes, we were fighting in a no-win situation, right? Me and another player were the only two people that were alive.
I had died.
Yes, we were already past our playtime that we had designated. James said, okay, I'm just gonna do this. Person comes up to you, says, do you wanna do this the easy way or the hard way? And then I say, fuck you, I'm not doing it the hard way. And then proceeds to kill my character. That's why I was like, no, 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 no. One thing you do not do is take over and tell me what my character does. If I wanted to portray that same exact instance, right? The room was surrounded except for one door. I would have just put more monsters in that room, because it was actually very important to the storyline that the characters die. As a GM, you can make the situation happen the way you need it to happen.
But the key to those things is that you're fudging and faking your side of the table, not the player's side of the table.
Exactly.
Also, I will say, it did make the campaign more complicated, like we said a couple times, but the next day, I do recall hearing that same GM go, I have some really good ideas now. That's what we're talking about.
Because it's an extremely collaborative story. I am running the Uncommon Trust on Sunday through City of Mist, a game that I've ran for you before.
Yes, I've run the same plot.
Completely different game.
100% different game.
Because I
was lost after, not lost, but I didn't know exactly what was going to happen next within the first hour at the most. An almost immediate deviation from the path that we took.
I know A and I know B, and I'm gonna let them take as long as they want to go to B, and I'm gonna create something that's going to try to be at least somewhat entertaining. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I fail. That's just how it is as a GM. Like, you're a storyteller, but you can't always control that your players are going to do, you know, what you want them to do. And I think that that's a very important part of being a GM is you can't control them. Why not make it fun?
Yeah. All right, everybody, head down to the comments. Let us know what you thought about this discussion. Let us know what you think about player freedom or about GMs
intervening?
Yeah, that word. In players' descriptions of things. Or really, if you have any tips related to this, let us know down in the comments. While you're down there, hit the like button if you liked the video. Hit the subscribe button to subscribe to the channel and help us grow, presumably. Or hit the bell icon if you want to get notified whenever we post new content. And then you can go talk to us on the Twitter. I am at KrugQT.
I'm IndigoQT on Twitter. Or you can talk to both of us on all of the following social medias. Woo. We've been GameGorgon. We'll see y'all later.